So this is a scene from an Edwardian ghost story I'm currently working on. My narrator is a medium. She's currently exploring a haunted house at night. I had not thought I would need a candle. The full moon flooded the halls with cerulean light through tall windows. I imagined this must be like the world underwater, how Atlantis must appear beneath the waves. Frozen in time, the elaborate furniture of a bygone era loomed around me, heavy and eternal. These objects in the hall were visible, if seen through a thin veil of unusual color, but their shadows were deep, bottomless pits below chairs, under tables, in the corners where walls met. But the floor was clear, my path forward visible, the doors still distinguishable, their knobs glittering. A noise behind one of the doors made me pause, my original mission delayed. If the entire house looked as if it were submerged, it had sounded the same. Thus far I had journeyed in absolute silence. The door from whence the sound emitted was slightly ajar, irresistible. The spirits had hovered just on the edge of my perception since I entered the house. I had turned around again and again, rounded corners, stared intently at the places where I felt the energy was particularly vibrant, and so far had seen nothing. They had been hiding themselves from me, but here was an open invitation to come, to see, to understand. I opened the door further, but the room beyond was darkened by heavy drapes, and the moonlight from the hall did not reach very far into it. Near me, a matchbook lay on an end table. I strode forward on my path of moonlight and picked it up. The door slammed behind me. I jumped, my hands fumbling with the matchbook. Blind in the room, I felt everything while I could see nothing. The hairs on my neck, the down on my cheek, the spot on my back between my shoulder blades, the vulnerable inch of ankle between my nightdress and my slippers. These nerves came alive in search of information. They tested the air, finding coolness and activity. There was something moving in the room around me, and if the match would not light, I would not see it. I separated one match and gripped it, the pad of my thumb passing over the box in search of the rough striking patch. I found it. The snap, the crackle, the hiss and sizzle of the match echoed as I struck it. The spark sputtered a moment, bright flecks flying in every direction, slim orange tongues looking at the air before a bulb formed at its base, grew, and finally blossomed into a steady flame. It perched on the tip of the match, and there it wavered, lengthening and receding by turns, the darker tip reaching ever upwards, continually righting itself as minuscule drafts pushed the flame from side to side, tugging it this way and that, away from its crumbling anchor. I made the mistake of looking directly at it during these first flaring moments of its life. For some time, all I could see was its flickering light, the orange, the yellow, the blue, and the blackening of the match head, the burning heat already sending dark tendrils creeping down the length of the wood. At first it was too bright, and I closed my eyes and saw the same image replicated in red and green and purple, a shuddering drop against the backs of my eyelids that moved and undulated, not with wind but with blood. I turned my face away from the flame and opened my eyes into the darkness surrounding me. The splotch where the light had been still clouded the center of my vision, an apparition floating, mirroring the movement of my pupils. There were objects all around, their presence stark and solid in my periphery, but a direct look showed me nothing but that shadow flame. Sight lacking in all other directions, I looked down at my hand. My own fingers were now visible, curled just below this flame, the light reflecting off my skin, shining brightest against the high, raised places where bone pressed closest to the surface. The creases at my joints became black crevasses where the light could not reach, drawing sharp lines down into the hollow of my palm. There were so many lines, thicker at the joints, thinner in the spaces between, but consistently patterned down the length of my fingers and thumb. Every one of these tiny details seemed to be revealed by the stark contrast of the illuminating light, but without, surrounding me, the things I desired most to see remained in darkness, my eyes so blinded by the flame that nothing else appeared. So I stood in the room with my lit match, seeing nothing. I could do nothing, but wait for my eyes to adjust. There, in the corner of my vision, a candlestick on a near table. I passed the flame to it quickly. The match had almost burnt down to my fingers. The light became more consistent from this better roost, and I walked about the room, illuminating all the mysteries of before. It was a common enough apartment, with sofas and chairs and tables and lamps. A wardrobe stood centered on the back wall of the room, its doors unlatched, an empty space between. I threw them open, thrusting my candle into the interior. It was empty. I finished my circle of the room and returned to stand in the center, giving it a last look. There was no sign of the spirits. I gave up and went back to the door. It opened easily. Behind me, I heard a soft click. The wardrobe was open again. I went, I opened, I looked, I still saw nothing. I looked closer. There, hiding in the dancing shadows of the candle, was a small hole on the floor of the wardrobe. I brought the flame closer. It was a very precise sort of hole, too big to be from a burrowing insect. In the flame this close, I thought I saw a difference in the wood of the bottom compared to the wood of the wardrobe's walls. I gave it an experimental tap. It sounded hollow and thin. I still had the end of the match with me, and with a little effort, it fit tightly into the hole. I pulled, and the bottom of the wardrobe lifted up. Below lay a sizable compartment, and a package wrapped in brown paper tied with twine. I took it.